them. The government and local councils and so on refer to them for the facts. If they criticize some statement put out, say, by a nuclear power station, they have nuclear physicists and people to whom they refer. They don't just blow away. So generally speaking, they're all the same, of course. The way all big business is now pretending to go green, and all the major destructive projects have been carried out by huge concerns and centrally financed. Now they all pretend to be, they take one little item which they've removed from some product and claim that they're very green because of that and so on. So I do see that your difficulty here is much, you're up against something much cruder. But I still say the core of the thing is sound. Of course, all the scarce stuff is another matter.
You think most of the scarce material on the greenhouse and that is in that field?
Well, remembering all the experience I had in fluoridation and the way that phony science was seized upon, both sides, and I think it improbable that even the greenhouse effect is an immediate threat that is made out to be. The fact is that no doubt the argument starts off sound, that you're squandering our fossil fuels that have been there for geological ages in what is, in geological terms, a sudden flash. I mean, a few centuries, that's no time. And we must expect some changes. On the other hand, such changes have always been occurring to the Earth. Sometimes what in human terms seem to be very slowly, taking millions of years, and I dare say there may have been some catastrophes, like collision with an asteroid or something in the past. But the situation is incredibly complex. All right, we are suddenly pouring out CO2 and other gases into the air. Now, I place a good deal of credence on Dr. James Lovelock, a remarkable and independent-minded scientist, who is rather a key figure in what I regard as the genuine green movement. And his Gaia hypothesis is to the effect that the Earth has the properties of a living organism. I won't agree that it's an organism, but it is, the surface of the Earth is covered with life known as the biosphere, and it has the properties of life. Among them is the property called homeostasis, which we all have in our bodies, every living organism. That is, or to use current jargon, negative feedback. Let's say we couldn't walk unless we had this property. We lurch to the right, an automatic reaction occurs, tending us to lurch. Negative feedback, we tend to lurch a bit to the left. Nobody walks dead straight. and the same with riding a bicycle and so on. And all the operations of our body are subject to this. And so you pour out a lot of CO2 and certain other gases, and you will get some automatic reaction from the biosphere, and the complications of the situation is terrific. For instance, you'll get, you'll begin to get a warming of the atmosphere, and then you get a growth of plankton in the sea, which will have an opposite effect, or some of them will. You warm the equator. There's all this scare about flooding when the polar ice melts. Well, in fact, the floating ice will not raise the sea level at all. Floating ice, when it melts, doesn't. Ice off the land will. Actually, if it becomes water and then reaches 4 degrees Celsius, it will be denser and occupy a little less room. On the other hand, the equatorial water will expand, and then there are complications galore about the, for instance, there's these El Nino current in the Pacific, which in some way increases droughts in Africa and India. But quite apart from that, slight variations in the sun heat, which regularly occur, are probably far more important than anything we can do on Earth. Slight variations in the Earth's orbit have effect. Well, you've got to calculate all these things. It's not just simple result. And you can measure this, that, and the other, and then you put something into the computer which extrapolates, let's say, evens it out of the whole business, which is a guess. So, yes, all this pollution and this waste of our resources is bad for the biosphere, for the living organisms, including us. But that it will produce an immediate catastrophe is on the Earth scale, of itself, is extremely unlikely, it seems to me. On the other hand, we've had doom on it, contradictory dooms. One remembers the threat of a falling population, and that a lot of old people, and every fifth house empty, wasn't it, Elizabeth? And something, and then all of a sudden the population was going to exploded, went off with a bang, and of course we remember the whole generation brought up in the terror of the nuclear bomb. It was sure to happen. It was scarcely worth the living. I mean, bound to be blown up or have a radioactive Earth. So it was going to be at the same time practically an empty radioactive Earth with the population exploding continually as well. But anything sensational will be exaggerated as long as it keeps people in fear. So I say, do not let the exaggeration of things like the greenhouse effect, which incidentally has been a godsend to the nuclear industry, the greenhouse effect. They've been exploiting it ruthlessly. You turn to nukes, they don't increase the greenhouse effect. And so
you have, of course, written and lectured quite extensively in the field of what we'll call religion. I read with some interest many of your articles in religious journals. You participate in conferences, and so as a scientist you've seen no conflict between religion, as you see it, Christianity in particular, and science.
No, I agree.